honorable senators, when the business of the Senate was suspended for lunch, Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield was giving his contribution to the Senate. I presume you're now ready to proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Please proceed, Senator Henfield.
Thank you, Madam President. As you've indicated, just before the lunch break, I was on my feet, and I just do a very brief recap. So before we took the lunch break, we addressed the size of the budget, which is kind of extraordinary in these times in which we find ourselves, and we understand why. And we're putting a lot of reliance on carbon credits and the green, orange, and blue economies. As we heard today, we're also going to be addressing a lot of our issues through PPPs, private-public partnerships, investments. We looked at our suits and legislation. And so that puts me in a position to move on. Madam President, in the current economic environment of escalating inflation and geopolitical upheaval, which lends to supply chain issues, the high cost of food, high fuel prices, and no appreciable increases in salary in sight, Bahamians are seeing dark days. As I referenced the geopolitical state of the world, this is an article by Bloomberg that I will lay, entitled Emerging Markets Club of Distressed Nations Gets 4 New Members. And if you like, I'll read it into the record. I will, with your permission, read it into the record and adopt it as my own. And it's by Selkuk Gokolak. And this is from Bloomberg, listed as being posted today. Today's the 22nd? Yes. Being posted today. Bloomberg says this. He says, sovereign bonds of Ecuador, Kenya, Nigeria, and Egypt have begun trading at distressed levels this month as more investors turn sour over emerging markets. The number of developing nations with dollar bonds offering a risk premium of at least 1,000 basis points over U.S. Treasuries, a threshold that signals a nation may struggle to repay its debt, jumped from 15 in May to 19 as of Monday. According to the data compiled by Bloomberg, only 9 nations were in distressed territory at the end of last year. Heavily indebted countries are feeling the strain as a supply crunch for food and fuels stokes inflation and sparks recession concerns, driving up their borrowing costs. So losses of emerging market sovereign dollar debt have exceeded 19% this year as investors, also spooked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, pulled funds, sending average bond yields to almost 8%, the highest level in more than 2 years. On this trouble list, regrettably, the Bahamas finds itself on. 10 more nations joined EM Distress Group this year, and spreads surged. And leading off the list is Belarus, Ukraine, they're at war, Maldives, Tajikistan, Pakistan. The Bahamas comes in at number 6. Kenya follows Ecuador, Nigeria, and Egypt. You know, among dollar bonds and tip, I think that's sufficient. That's sufficient to let us know the challenging times in which we find ourselves. Yes, ma'am, please. I'll do it at the end. In which we find ourselves. And this brings me to my next point. This is one of the reasons why some prognosticators have determined, economists have determined that, you know, we are in very challenging times over which we have very little control. Very little control. And Senator Raming made a point yesterday, you know, that, and we try to say this to developed countries every day. We can make grand plans for a budget, and in one swell swoop comes Irma or Dorian, and it knocks you reeling. Can't catch yourself for days, right? And so that's why we always said to them, stop judging us based on our GDP, GNP per capita, and treat with us fairly based on our vulnerabilities. And the geopolitical storms that we find here now, we're gonna have to include these and vulnerabilities in the same way that we do hurricanes, things we have no control over, but yet we are severely impacted by them. The Prime Minister sums it up this way, and I quote, "The necessities of life are just too expensive, almost everywhere. In truth, the cost of living was too high even before the global inflation crisis, but now we're in new territory. Food prices have gone up 20% just last year. The cost of everything keeps going up, but paychecks for those lucky enough to have work are not keeping pace." End quote. And so we end up with a few cuts in duty rates and return of the RISE program. I believe the cuts in duty rates are good, but are they sufficient to keep up with the rates of shipping, supplies, and of inflation? You go in the food store, the prices are higher because of the exacerbated issue with the shipping supplies and developers and suppliers. You go to the gas pump, it's rough. I don't know what else is left for people to do. I guess we got to encourage a proper public transportation system so people can get on it and go to work and drive less. The Bahamians don't like the carpool. This is exactly where we are. And we live in an environment where everyone looks one place to get help. But that one place only can do so much. I find it extremely difficult to understand, though, why there was nothing groundbreaking or earth-shattering in the pronouncements of relief. Instead, we went back to the RISE program, same old program, and I hope it can do sufficient for those in need. Policies that do not take into account the real struggles on the ground. I was in that other place with a wonderful member from Angliston who is a champion for the poor. And this is what she said every day. Your policies do not take into effect the real struggles on the ground. And sometimes you're in another place and you're hovering over there and you lose sight of the challenges on the ground. It fails to appreciate the desire of the majority of Bahamians to finally own a piece of their own patrimony. That's why we have what we have going on now. Bahamians trying to own a piece of their patrimony, albeit in the wrong way. But that's what's driving that furor, feeling that they're left out, feeling that others can come here and enjoy and get the best of what we have to offer while they're constantly overlooked. But this budget provides over $50 million for consultancies and $5 million for ceremonies, but not nearly enough to strengthen Bahamian businesses, to build up or to raise up Bahamian capital funds locally, improve Bahamian skills in the labor pool, and lower the cost of energy as they promised. I've not heard it stated categorically, but if I'm wrong, I can be corrected. I don't believe the government continued the hedging program at BPL, which gave us a sort of a shelter. Now there's a risk in the hedging program. If fuel goes up, right, you're good because you're hedged at a certain dollar amount for a barrel or however they sell it. But if it goes down, you lose. Well, we happen to be in a place now where fuel is climbing. We don't know where it will end. I've heard talks about fuel going to $10 a gallon. I think it's near that now in Abaco, if it's not that. and places like that. I hear this talk in America, who has this huge fuel reserve that they could open up and let go to pressure. And I guarantee you, you're going to see a shift in American strategic policy related to countries that they were not speaking to before because of this issue. This is going to influence them to move differently on their strategic efforts and how they deal with certain countries. So not only does it fail to provide sufficient relief for Bahamians desperately in need of help as they struggle to make ends meet, but it also increases the burden of an already soaring national debt. Seems that there is just no relief, even in a new day. Whilst members of this government fly across the world like rock stars and hide behind the notion that we did not do the same, some Bahamians are left here at home. That's what they say all day, you know. I only the messenger. Some Bahamians are left here at home. That's the perception is everything. It's the perception of it. Yeah, and I telling you how we get here. So you'd be wise to listen. people over there used to tell me too, you know. And I hear I said, you know, when you come here, they know what they're talking about. They've been here before. You come here with this sense of fervor, we can get it done, man. That wall been standing there for 50 years, nobody touched and moved that yet. There may have been a reason why. But you come in here and you stay up there for a little while, and then the reality starts. It's setting in now. Yeah, in a little while. In a little while, trust me. My friend from Anglican used to tell me the same thing every day. Say, man, y'all ain't doing that well, you know. So y'all ain't doing that good, you know. But you in your own spirit, you feel, boy, I'm riding this. I got it. But life sets in sometimes. Then comes Dorian and COVID and all the rest of them. You know, one of my colleagues on the other side last evening read from an adopted article by Sharon Turner, which lamented our administration's move to increase the travel per diem to $250 for ministers and $100 for their spouses. Well, we would like to know if this administration reversed that policy that they lamented so much, that they found so egregious at the time when we did it. That's the question we would like to know. Because I mean, if you say it was wrong then, it got to be wrong now. And so if you're using it in the same way that we left it, it was purely political to say it was wrong then. So, okay, so the policy hasn't changed, and we've increased our rate of travel. Maybe that brings an understanding to the 4 million increase. So, Madam President, high levels of crime, particularly in youth violence, result in multiple deaths each weekend in New Providence and elsewhere. So I believe that this budget missed an opportunity to really do something constructive toward impacting the social realignment of many of our young people who are engaged in destructive and generally counterproductive behavior. Whatever happened to the notion that the good health and well-being of our youth is a prime concern of my government? My government will invest in their development, encourage and support their participation in national life, and provide and promote opportunities for their future. I believe this comes out of the speech from the throne, which I thought were good ideas. Good ideas. No, I parroted this from something the Prime Minister said. You should have that. You should have that. You should have that. Whatever happened to the promised creation of the national programs that tackle new threats to the well-being of young people, including issues of mental health, lack of self-confidence and identity, excessive social media consumption and national identity and unity? I felt something like an announcement, something like I heard the Minister of Economic Affairs said that when he was listening to our first budget, or second budget, and then when he heard the bat, he sat back a little easier, right? Whatever happened to the promise to create a national first job program that allows young people between the ages of 16 and 25 to gain a one-year government subsidized placement in the field of national priority? I just want to remind you, because we don't want them, we don't want them to slip more beneath the crack, including the new economies and trade. Whatever happened to the promise to launch the community youth service and offer stipends for young Bahamians to provide service to NGOs and community groups? This can build a vital bridge between school and the job market. So, you send some of them down to Bishop Hanschel and send some down to Bishop Roll and send some down to Bishop Moss and send some down to Form, and then they get to do something constructive as well as help the development of the country. And that will teach them how to be responsible. These are good ideas. These are good ideas that I want the new day to always be reminded of, to refocus and come back to. Because these are the type of ideas I believe that will save our country. And finally, whatever happened to the establishment of the National Youth Guard in order for young people to receive technical training, enabling them to serve in a disaster response corps? We could have used it a couple of years ago, where young people would come and help the recovery and learn something about life. I know that something was done for urban renewal. That is good. But the challenges that we have with our young people needs to be focused more priority on it. Madam President, this government was elected on an agenda to look after the unions and their members. In fact, for the first time that I can recall, in the modern history of the Bahamas, some kind of pact was signed, albeit not all unions participated, to demonstrate the will of the government to be accessible, to be forthright, and most of all, union-friendly. Since they've come to office in the last 9 months, we've heard the displeasure of multiple unions. Multiple unions complaining about they can't see someone, they can't talk to someone. The Public Service Union. And see, this when you're in another place, don't beat to the ground like other people. People just come to people who are on the ground with them. So I understand that. The Public Service Union is saying one thing, the government is saying the next. The nurses, teachers, and senior staff at NIB, the court reporters, the gas retailers, and a host of others simply cannot find the resolutions that they anticipated would be among the first priorities of the government. I mean, after all, we made a pact with them. That said, Madam President, the government must find a way to inspire confidence in members of the public service. We are hearing that morale is very low. Public servants should be treated with respect. In fact, they can either make or break a government. You're doing something right. You better spread that. There must be a more conciliatory approach towards solving their outstanding issues, which we readily admit accumulated over years. This didn't just happen with you. It didn't just happen with you. I think successive governments needed to focus a little bit more on how we treat with the public service. But reconciliation with the public service will not be achieved by harsh and often unfounded accusations of wrongdoings and unfounded criticisms by senior elected government officials. You can't do it that way. You got to sit down and hear them and let them hear you. When I was in the military, sometimes you on a boat with a bunch of fellas and you in charge. You could see the steam building up, So some days we just anchor somewhere, go on a radar watch and have a gripes and grievance meeting. So you come into the mess with them and you say, look, there's no ranking here. It's just us. We live in this boat together. Every man or woman speak your piece and it will not be held against you. And that's the way you listen, and that's the way you settle the issues that are before you. The poultry offerings served to nurses and teachers, who are the backbone of this country, simply do not cut the mustard in this environment where the cost of living keeps climbing on what appears to be a daily basis. We need to find a way. I don't know, we didn't do it. We need to find a way to keep or retain our nurses, because the wealthy countries are taking them. Now, how do we incentivize them? I don't know. Do you give them crown land? Do you do something? Do you give them preferential rates for housing? Normally, when we started these housing programs, what the government looked at initially was how you help public servants, people in the security forces, and other people like that. How you help them to be able to get houses. You know, when they did the APD offering out there at the port, I was in the Defense Force, and they offered to us an opportunity to get some shares. And I said, boy, you can take it out my salary over a period of time, and that ain't affect what I got to do. I said, let me sign up for this. I don't know where they're really worth now, but I hear they're good. These are the kind of programs that we need to look at to incentivize our public servants like nurses and teachers, police officers and the security forces, customs, and clerks, who we can't do nothing without. I suggest, therefore, that the government go post-haste, go and sit with these respective unions so that fitting and proper remuneration packages might be worked out, which suits both sides. They're not unreasonable, They understand They understand we in a pickle. Excellent. Attorney General is saying that he met with the court reporters yesterday. I could strike that one off the list. See, they can't speak for themselves. And when they speak for themselves, they're often maligned because of it. And so they come to people to talk for them. Like the VAT program that's coming now, that's under consideration for the insurers. I'm assured by the Economic Affairs Minister that he's going to meet with them. That's all they're asking for, That's all they're asking for, because what they're saying is what the government is proposing will cause the cost of their clients to go up. Businesses don't eat no costs. They pass it on to the consumer. And if you're looking at housing insurance and medical insurance and catastrophic insurance, we should encourage people to have insurance, not encourage them to go somewhere else or just say, I can't afford to insure my house. Lord Jesus, keep me near the cross. So let's look at how we deal with this one, Minister Halkidas. I trust your word, and I know you're going to address this. Because anytime you see these people get into the public domain, go on the radio, they have exhausted all avenues for relief, and they've come to the public now. So the public can hear what the government is doing and then pick a side. Well, the public are their clients. So they will obviously fall on the side of the insurers. Let me first, however, commend the government for its cognizance in seeking to do something constructive in areas such as the introduction of catastrophic healthcare service, Family Island Development Fund, and the investment in fishers and in farmers. The catastrophic healthcare is much needed in the Bahamas. In fact, we need universal catastrophic healthcare. And this is a decent first step. But I'm afraid that it doesn't go far enough. I say that guardedly because we never did it, but I say it anyway. We have all heard the horror stories about Bahamians in dire need of help, and we've all attended and supported initiatives to raise funding for such persons. As such, the funding for this initiative, in my humble estimation, should have been around 50 million, not 10 million. That's just me. That's my thought on it. This program, as I understand it, will be administered by the cabinet. Is that so? By the minister, the cabinet. He speaks for the cabinet. And so, if that is the case, this sends a wrong message to the public, which knows quite well that kisses go by favor, especially in this country. You don't want to put yourself in that position. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So what such a program should be and must be open in the light of the new day. If it is to have the necessary transparency, accountability, and openness that it requires to assure all Bahamians that there is fairness. And so this should be populated with a board of doctors, pastors, school teachers, I don't know, who could say we've looked at these applications, and it takes the pressure off of you. And so, because your constituents start coming to you, you know. How come this one could get it, that one could get it, and my grandfather needs a heart transplant, he can't get it. So then your good is spoken evil of. Don't put that on you. Put it in a committee somewhere. The Family Island Development Fund is another positive step in the right direction. However, we eagerly await the details of how this fund will work. If it's going to be administered in Nassau by bureaucrats who truly don't fully appreciate the way we live in Family Island, I mean, they only pass through there, you know. It will not achieve its intended purpose. Because I believe you want to do some work in the Family Island, and I applaud it. Family Island Development Fund, I think it was called. Let me just finish this point, and then you could correct me, right? The Family Island want to see more power in the hands of local government officials, and practitioners whom they elected. The local government practitioners must have a huge say in how these funds are dispersed in their communities and for what. This is probably always had in Abaco, right? Because we always produce so much to the national treasury, the consolidated fund, and we always got back so very little in return. That's why one time we wanted to go independent. Because we figure if we giving you more than we getting, we might as well go it alone. No. I know what you're talking about, right? You want to say I can deal.
Thank you, colleague Henfield. Just to help guide you on.
Chair recognizes
Thank
Ryan.
you. Sorry, Madam President. I am slipping back into my old ways. For your benefit, so the infrastructure fund, which the Family Island Development Trust Fund will be a sub-fund of, is going to be set up under the Santiago Principles. And with the Santiago Principles, they're principles of independence and good governance that you have to meet and fulfill in order to be regarded as a sovereign fund that has proper governance and administration, of which there will be primarily, almost entirely, the governance board will be private sector persons rather than government employees or politicians. So that has to be, and you'll see that when we bring the legislation, that is in there. To your point, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is the first time in history that Family Island revenues have gone back into a fund for Family Island development. And at the recent local government conference that the Minister of Local Government held, he made an announcement of that and solicited from the local council that was there to provide projects that the local government council would want to view as part of this infrastructure fund so we could see how it's going to be factored in and eligible projects. So we have directly solicited local councils across the country at their conferences to submit the requests. And the minister has probably 10 pages of requests of infrastructure projects directly from local government. So that in itself has advanced as well. So you're absolutely correct. We agree 100% with your recommendations, and we've already put those in motion.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Fishers and farmers initiatives are likewise another step in the right direction, but also gravely underfunded. I don't know. I think we gave them $2 million for this particular one. If if we are going to achieve the food security which is required, we must find a resolve to empower these vital industries to achieve their full potential. Bombsy could do it, man. Bombsay could do it. Tokenism is, in this regard, just won't cut it. In an era where we are importing 33.3 million worth of vegetables annually, according to the FDA, you know? So we need to find a way to we're in a state now where we need food security. We need food security, more than anything else. And so whatever we can do for the fishers and farmers, we applaud that. And finally, Madam President, the airports, we heard a little bit more about that from the AG this morning. But this is a very aggressive plan to build six airports. Airports, Lord knows they're needed. But the reality of it is, however, is that airports are very expensive to build and even more expensive to maintain. And so how are we really going to build all these airports, which I'm advised will cost between 300 and 400 million? And how will they be funded? I heard that this morning, the PPPs. How will we operate them to ensure their proper and timely upkeep? Good. That's what I wanted to hear. So that we avoid the maintenance and, you know, I'm not going to tolerate standing here and being insulted. You know, please protect me from this one. I'm trying to finish now. You know, I ain't trying to pick no more fight. I have a job to do, and I'm going to do my job.
Okay.
Not be deterred by the Muppets in the gallery.
Senator Henfield, just stay focused on me.
You know,
Members,
all us here grew up watching the Muppet Show, you know. Yeah, well.
Senators, order.
You know, you know, in the gallery, that's yapping all the time.
You did say in the gallery.
You ain't in the gallery, you're in the Parliament. You're in the Parliament, you ain't in the gallery. Muppets in the gallery, you here. Maintenance and other logistical issues we have come into contact with over the years can only be solved by putting in the hands of an operation, an organization like we did with NAD, and that will cost the upkeep. It's going to cost Bahamians some money now, because Bahamians believe that they just walk into the airport, park anywhere, especially in the islands, jump on the plane and go. But when you put these airports in, you're going to have to put in some parking spaces. That's going to cost people to have to pay. In conclusion, Madam President, wonderful word to everybody's here. We must find a way to attract more foreign direct investment in order to mobilize international capital into our otherwise sluggish and almost anemic economy, which is invariably under siege by any number of geopolitical influences. We must also find the conviction to truly trust and fully appreciate the impact of small, medium-sized businesses can have in our economies, such as ours, that are prone to external shocks that can come from anywhere, as we see in this Ukraine war. With that, Madam President, I thank you for your indulgence, and I wish Godspeed. Even though we didn't go fishing together yet, I still will call him a friend, because you ain't really friends until we pull one in together. I wish Godspeed upon Minister Michael Alkitis as he tries to administer this budget and all of its moving parts in the interest of the Bahamian people. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Darren Henfield, for your contribution. Kindly table the documents. Thank you. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
Yeah, just to assist the good member in his questions on how the airport infrastructure fund and operations on PPPs are going to happen. So the intent is that, you know, the Bahamas government will own the property that the airports are on. We will have a special purpose vehicle that is going to hold the leases to those airports. And then there will be a management agreement with an operator who will come in with capital. So the government would provide a lease to the property plus some cash capital through the infrastructure fund. The manager will come in with cash capital, perform the upgrades, and then take the responsibilities of managing that airport. And then the revenues from that airport on landing fees, concession fees, and the like will be shared amongst the parties, the government and the operator as part of that management agreement. So we will have professional operators, we will have proper financial investment, and then that's how the PPP structure is intended to work.
Thank you, Senator Pinder. Sure. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock.
Good afternoon, Madam President and fellow senators. I firstly would like to thank the Almighty God and our Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip E. Davis, for the opportunity to serve in this place and contribute in this place to our great country, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam President, as I am on my feet, the Honorable Prime Minister is now addressing the business forum at Chogam in Rwanda on the issue of financing blue-green growth for sustainable islands. I would like to wish our Prime Minister Godspeed and to let him know to continue with what he is doing and how he is contributing and moving the country forward in this regard. And I'm sure the country at large will wish our Prime Minister all the best. Madam President, for the Progressive Liberal Party, it was a gloomy autumn of 1993. 1 year after the triumph of Hubert Alexander Ingram, who led the Free National Movement to its historic general election victory. The Progressive Liberal Party, the machine and architect of majority rule and national independence, Bahamianization, the College of the Bahamas, the National Insurance Board, the emergence of a strong, resilient middle class, this PLP, with a quarter of a century in governments, lay defeated, crushed, and political pundits and the Bahamian media had read it, the last rites, and prophesied it would rise no more. National hero Sir Lyndon Pindling, wore down by the scars of battle, the rejection of the masses, took to the podium for a rally of sorts on the grounds of PLP National Headquarters, Gamba House on Farrington Road in Nassau. What Sir Lyndon Pindling said, and I will paraphrase from reports I have read and been told as he spoke to his legacy and his ideology and his life's mission. Madam President, Sir Lyndon Pindling's words are a beacon for my generation today. Sir Lyndon Pindling said on the balmy autumn night that he was satisfied that during his lifetime, he and a band of revolutionaries, very young Bahamians, banded themselves together towards a singular noble purpose. That purpose was that something was very much wrong in the colony of the Bahama Islands. Something was wrong, very much wrong, with what Bahamians were entitled to. Something was wrong with the Bahamas as a crown colony of Great Britain. Stay with me, Madam President, I'm going somewhere. And on this night, Sir Lyndon Pindling said he looked back with pride and say, even when the people voted him out, that the goals achieved by this group of young Bahamians who selflessly set out to change and transform a fishing village into a country of change and transformation that is recognized or have world recognition and class. The change had taken place, and the Bahamas was on this autumn night, may not have the PLP government in office in 1993, but the Bahamas was benefiting from the struggle, the ambition, the vision, and the mission of some very young men and women who set out to bring about change. When the very novel concept of that change began as a whisper, a taboo, the unthinkable, but today it anchors the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The baton has been passed to this new generation of Bahamians. Many of us born in the closing decades of the last century, and the Generation Xers with us today. Madam President, we meet here today to debate, dissect, and pass this 2022-2023 national budget into action and reaffirm the promise of its deliverance and convince ourselves that 12 months from today, everything will go as planned and forecast. Yet, beyond our borders and the margins of the pages of this budget communication must emerge the new Bahamian of the new day, who, like the generation of Sir Lyndon Pendling, spoke to on that autumn night in 1993. Madam President, I would like to again thank the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Edward Brave Davis, for presenting the 2022-23 budget, national budget, under the theme, The Way Forward, in that other place. Further, I would like to also thank the Minister of Economic Affairs, Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis, and his team for their work with the 2022-2023 budget. He must be commended. Madam President, before the last Prime Minister came to power in 2017, he made a very interesting statement. He said something to the effect that any government that used taxation to raise revenue was lazy and lacked imagination. Madam President, he came to power, and the first opportunity he had to implement his ideas, he raised VAT by 60%. Madam President, this move effectively slowed down our economy. We're talking about a raise of 60%. With consumption taxes, when consumption taxes are too burdensome, they have a negative effect on our economic growth. Madam President, as the Minister of Economic Affairs has indicated, there are no new taxes in the 2022-2023 budget. Madam President, this Davis administration clearly understands the way forward, as the introduction of taxes would be counterproductive to our recovery. Madam President, make no mistake, the Davis administration, upon coming to office, inherited an economic catastrophe, a crisis. The lockdown and the curfews during COVID hurt Bahamian businesses. Madam President, in the first 8 months of the Davis administration, emergency orders ended. The burdensome and ineffective COVID-19 protocols and restrictions ended. This allowed the economy to fully open so that employees could return to work and business can resume operations. This was very important for us, Madam President. As a result, Madam President, revenues immediately increased. Government surplus, cash balances improved by nearly $35 million in the first month alone. This is a government that cares. This is a government that understands its people and the needs of its people. Madam President, to add to the list of bad decisions by the previous administrations, and I might add, while these bad decisions were being made, some of us too around this table sat on those decisions, Madam President. The ill-advised purchase of the Grand Lucayan, which cost Bahamian payers, and you would have heard this throughout various presentations, cost the Bahamian taxpayers more than $150 million. What a colossal mess, Madam President. Alas, the Davis-Cooper administration steps in and reaches an agreement to sell the hotel for $100 million. The renovations alone, Madam President, are estimated at $300 million. The projected promises to provide 2,000 construction jobs and, once completed, 1,000 permanent jobs. Madam President, if we contrast this to the F&M deal with Royal Caribbean Cruise Line and the ITM Group, $50 million was the cost that was agreed, and the Bahamas had to provide $100 million in cash concessions over a 12-year period. And terminate all of the employees. What a bad deal. Who was at the negotiating table at that point? Madam President, the poor response to Hurricane Dorian, the slow recovery in Grand Bahama and Abaco, Madam President. But it's a new day, Madam President. It's a new day in Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama is on the move and will surpass its best days. There is new hope and optimism in Grand Bahama. Whether it is the sale of the Grand Lucayan, the groundbreaking for the construction of a new cruise port at an estimated cost of $200 million, or the redevelopment of the Grand Bahama International Airport, which was abandoned since Hurricane Dorian almost 3 years ago. Grand Bahama is on the move, and I am sure that Senator Russell would agree with that, Madam President. Abaco is rebuilding. Development in Central Pines, and I'm sure the member opposite, Senator Darren Henfield, would appreciate this point. Abaco is rebuilding. Development in Central Pines, Abaco, will feature 30 homes that will be built through a public-private partnership. And we heard an explanation from our Attorney General, the Honorable Ryan Leo Pinda, the Lion, on public-private partnership and his explanation. The lots are currently in various stages of completion, with 10 having lots that are now up to blocks, and the remainder lots being leveled and prepared for construction. The cost of these homes will range in price from $130,000 to $180,000. 18 additional lots are being developed in the Central Pines and are being made ready for infrastructural development. Madam President, Abaco is on the move. In Spring City, roadworks, waterworks, electrical works, and surveying works are underway for 21 lots that will serve as another site for affordable homes to be constructed. Madam President, Sand Cove subdivision has all infrastructure in place and was originally developed to be sold as lots. However, today we have some 30 plus available that have not been sold and are looking to build on the lots through the ministry's PPP program. The lots are ready for construction and the RFP document for surveying is completed and ready. Madam President, like it was alluded to earlier, the Minister of Housing, Transport and Housing must be going, you get a lot, you get a lot, you get a lot, everybody get a lot. Because she is certainly taking her role very seriously and she is making a difference. When building homes, and when you look at the previous administration having built no homes, none, not one, in 4.5 years, she must be commended at all costs. Madam President, the previous government missed opportunity to borrow at a lower rate, interest rate, making our debt more expensive. Under the previous government, there were unprecedented levels of borrowing, about $2 billion per year, without one single school, without one single clinic, without one single airport, no major roads or hospital or housing development to show for it. The debt is at 87.5% of GDP as of May 2022, a reduction from 101% as of June 2021. The government has established a debt management committee to devise strategy to manage the high level of debt. Let's not forget the Oban fiasco that undermined the confidence of the government. Madam President, we see bad decisions after bad decisions after bad decisions. Madam President, our small economy, where we have to borrow to complete our national budgetary allocation, cannot or could not endure those glaring and outrageous departures from standard checks and balances and norms. There were some among us who sat around that table when these poor decisions were being made. Madam President, the pretense as if they do not hold collective responsibility just boggles my mind. I turn now to the government's ambitious agenda. And Madam President, now that I've laid out how we've gotten to this point, I would like to now expand on what the New Day government and their ambition with respect to home ownership, Madam President, and new custom tariff reductions on a number of goods. We should also remind ourselves that the government, in coming to office, slashed the VAT, I alluded to it earlier, of 12% to 10% in October 2021. Madam President, inflation is international. Here in our little Bahamas, where we produce so very little of what we eat, wear, use, the impact of inflation can be very crippling, Madam President. To this end, the government is to be commended for its harmonious blend of ensuring people can live in dignity and afford their lifestyle while not compromising the government's revenue projections. Madam President, I suppose analysts will look at this budget years from today and marvel at the care, the compassion, the affirmative action for Bahamian ownership, and unique comprehension of how the governed should be respected and their rights and privileges and opportunities enshrined by those who govern. Madam President, recently the country celebrated the opening of the newest public housing community in Pinecrest, Madam President. Pinecrest, which is located in the southern district of the island of New Providence. Madam President, among those who obtained new ownership was a young 18-year-old Bahamian woman who got the opportunity at that age to own her own home. This bold decision by the Ministry of Housing to recognize the importance of home ownership to every category of the population is to be applauded. This government is home ownership friendly. It almost reminds me of the advertising jingle of a Marquis Street electric appliance and satellite dish enterprise in the mid-80s, whose prices were so low, the cry was, "The man gone crazy." Madam President, this government gone crazy. Madam President, this government is laying the framework in a gone crazy in a positive way. We are contributing, Madam President, to the happy index in this country. Happy days are here again. This government is home ownership friendly. This government is laying the framework and the foundation for early home ownership and making it affordable and reasonably so. The government is lowering the cost for acquiring property on which to build. In the 2022 budget, it gives a reduction in duty on roofing materials, plumbing materials, electrical supplies, etc. Madam President, here is how the Prime Minister describes in the budget, and I quote, "For Bahamians who dream of home ownership, this dream can soon become a reality. Currently, concessions are available for persons who purchase a home for the first time. We are expanding these concessions so that people who purchase a home or purchase land and construct their first home or purchase a house and renovate it, their first home will receive the same level of concessions. For those who are constructing or renovating their first home, we also are refunding up to $40,000 in cash for any VAT paid for construction services or materials purchased once the occupancy certificate is provided within 18 months of the commencement of construction," the Prime Minister said. He goes on to say, "We are also increasing the level of exemption for first-time home buyers from $250,000 to $300,000, Madam President, and reducing VAT on property transfers below $1 million for individuals. Madam President, the government is also eliminating VAT on property transfers between joint tenants as property owners. This is powerful. The government is also encouraging investment by Bahamians in commercial properties by reducing the real property tax rates in that sector as well. Commercial. This is powerful. Madam President, I keep coming back to the term family islands. Here again, the government is creating a lucrative field for Bahamians who wish to invest in short-term rental units. In addition, Bahamian investors in these short-term rental units in the family islands will have the benefit of duty-free building material concessions and also duty-free concessions on furniture and appliances. Madam President, this is indeed a time of great economic renaissance for Bahamian young people who want to invest in their country. Madam President, the Prime Minister is placing tremendous faith in the ability of the Bahamian people to grasp these wonderful concessions and affirmative action policies which will anchor Bahamian ownership and firm up the foundation for generational wealth. Indeed, Madam President, if taken advantage of, these concessions and opportunities will create a new Bahamas and a new mindset and a new positive and productive ethos in our people. It's a new day. Ownership is the mark of distinction and pride, and our people are now being offered more tangible necessities to invest, such as their own home, rather than a sports car, bling-bling jewelry, and high-tech gadgets. A home for every Bahamian is now within their reality and their grasp. I say to young people everywhere to step now, as Sir Lyndon told my parents' generation, and own your own piece of the Bahamas. Take advantage of every scintilla of a concession being made available to you. And 10 and 15 years from now, you will look back at where you got your start and see how you have grown even more and achieved even more, because once sitting in government in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas was a man from Roll Avenue who came by way of Old Bite Cat Island, who decided that the time has come for Bahamians everywhere to own their Bahamas. Own their home, own their businesses, own their commercial property, own investments in renewable energy. They call him brave. Be brave. Madam President, every one of us in here should be in the highways and byways of this nation, waking up our young people to the wonderful opportunities that are there for the taking. Madam President, the Prime Minister is adamant and resolute when he says in this budget that his government will consult with the Bahamas Development Bank to fund Bahamians in small businesses at unprecedented levels. We have come out of the COVID pandemic and the wounds and scars of Dorian. We have emerged beyond the lockdowns and the food lines. We have many more miles to go before we sleep, but we have a blueprint, a GPS, a tracking map, a tour guide, the way to the future, Madam President. For 4 years, not one single house was built by the former government, while they borrowed at an average $2 billion per year on the backs of Bahamians. This is not a time to look back in anger. This is a time to marvel at how much we can achieve together and how glorious and great it is to participate in the advancement of our fellow men. Madam President, there are some who are dead backs, hot, mad, angry. They refuse to see any good.
Go ahead.
They refuse to acknowledge any progress. They are blinded by political partisanship and bias, and they are ashamed of their own records. Now is the time for truth and reconciliation. Say you are sorry to the Bahamian people and mean it. Be humble. Be humble. But don't come in here all puff up and hot around your collar as the leader of the opposition constantly scolds his colleagues. And I quote, "Arrogance gets you out of governance and on this side of the house." End quote. Madam President, I have sought to prescribe my contribution today to areas of energy, climate change, economic empowerment for a forgotten people, in particular in the area of housing, like I'd mentioned earlier. Madam President, this 2022 budget and its projection for revenue and the government's transparent resolve and report are critical to our continued success as a nation and as a people. Nobody in here wants the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to fail. We may be in different cabins, but in the same boat. No mutiny on the Bounty. Madam President, the government, Mr. Vice President, the government's agenda for young farmers is also to be highly commended. The impetus and support for poultry and farmers is another golden opportunity. We need a mindset and a national resolve backed by support for Bahamian ingenuity and products. We used to grow our own chickens.
Yes.
We used to grow our own pigeon peas,
Yes.
onions and okras and bananas. What happened to us? Have we become so sophisticated that we cut off our own nose to spoil our face? Mr. Vice President, this is a time for a call to make that call for private funding on the international market at a decent rate to undergird Bahamian enterprises. This is a time for local financial institutions to take a serious look at development financing. We have some major decisions to make in this decade. We have seen what a turn on the road like the corona pandemic can do. We have seen what happens when a government is overwhelmed to the point where it just throws up in the towel and just throws in the towel. We have seen what happens when we don't consult and allow equal participation in governance. We are just hours away from passing into law and implementation of this 2022-2023 budget for our ailing but recovering nation. So much has happened in the last 3 weeks since this national budget was laid on the table in that other place. A sitting elected official is charged before the courts with criminal offenses, alleged to have originated from his time in office as the chairman of a government corporation. A new national debate has followed as to what are the conventions which ought to govern the Bahamas in such circumstances.
What is your point of order, Senator Handfield?
Let me get the rule book.
Yeah, let's get the rule book.
Yeah, let me get the rule book.
Go ahead.
No, let me just get my own
Let me help you. Let me help you.
rule book. But it says that no
No, let's
member.
look at the rule book directly, please. Yeah.
no member should speak in of another member unless the person informs the chair. And that information should be given to the chair in writing and approved by the chair. Read the rule. Yeah.
I think you're referring to section
Ready.
Rule 31, subsection 20.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
what you're referring to, Senator Handfield?
Yes, ma'am. Any
I thought
senator
you
who
were
desires
referring-
to refer in debate in the Senate or in any committee to the character or conduct of any person in his official or public capacity shall deliver to the President written prior notice of the proposed reference. Notice shall set out the facts on which such reference will be based and shall be signed by the senator giving it. The President may, in his or her discretion, in this case, permit the reference. What's the next one?
The
Also,
I thought that you were, Senator, I thought that you were referring to subsection 17.
that suits just as well. But this one that I gave you says to you that if a member is going to attack the character of another member, he must give you notice.
But what was the character attack?
You are
Senator Handfield?
the matter is sub judice in the first place, so it should not be brought up in here.
Let's not.
So it should not be brought up in here, right? The matter is before the courts. This is not the place to have that
It
debate.
said sub judice.
Yes.
I agree with you.
The matter is before the courts.
However, the rule
should not have
says-
the debate in here.
Senator Handfield, however, the rule says that the reference will not interfere in a material way with the court matter.
With that inside here
What
today.
is what
It's a good
what
debate.
is the interference
the
of a
court.
material matter?
Matters before the courts. Why
Senator
don't we have that
Handfield.
here today?
Senator Handfield?
The matter is sub
Can you
judice.
please-
It is before the courts, and it ought not be discussed in here.
Thank you.
That's all I'm saying.
That is
and I
that
wish
is-
the Attorney
that is
General
your
could help
view.
me with this.
That is your view on it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And
Because you're the Attorney General, you got to tell people the law.
the rule here says unless it interferes in a material way. I don't see why the factual statement will interfere in a material way. Senator Pickstock? can we move on with respect to your debate? And please don't. It'll be good if you not reference any matters that are before the court for the remainder of your debate, just to err on the side of caution.
Madam President,
Do you have any more references to that matter?
a new national debate, no, Madam President.
Pardon me?
No, Madam President. I've said
Okay, thank you very much.
a new national
And
debate.
Senator Hanfield, in the
followed-
future, when the president is speaking, I would be very grateful if you would respect the chair
President, I
and be
tried so
quiet.
hard.
If you can just try a little harder, I'll be very grateful, because you're starting to offend the president and chair. Thank you so much, Senator. I really appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Can we please proceed, Senator Bigstock? Grateful. Thank you.
President. A new national debate has followed as to what are the conventions which ought to govern the Bahamas in such circumstances. As I said, a whole lot of has been going on since this budget communication was laid on the table in that other place. A sitting member boldly explained some of the concerns on certain behaviors and conduct that may have transpired on the watch of his predecessor in a controversial government agency. Within hours, the most vile, nasty, and horrific racist and politically characteristic personal attacks was launched on social media against that member and his wife, in what public commentary seemed to suggest was as a result of his daring to tell the Bahamian people what he says occurred in the department he now heads. Furthermore, Madam President, to send more shockwaves through the nation, it was revealed that in that other place, that a series of exorbitant public spending to outfit an apartment for a public diplomat posted in Europe. This reached crescendo when the Foreign Affairs Minister in the public domain said categorically he did not approve the funding for these lavish makeovers and luxury decors in the tough times.
Point of order. I categorically deny.
Wait. First of all, you've not been recognized. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Hanfield.
The member is currently making imputations at my character that I want to clear up.
Right.
What false imputations? I did not say what he said. I said.
No. Okay, Senator Hanfield, can you repeat what he said that are the false imputations?
I don't remember what he said, but I know it's bad.
I'll repeat.
I know it's
Give
bad.
me a minute, Senator Hanfield. Senator Hanfield.
Let me repeat
What he
it.
said was the Minister of Foreign Affairs sitting did not approve.
Yes.
Right? Right?
Exactly.
No. But let me just make this point, please. Let me just make this point, please. Right?
You can't.
What I said was, and you can't take everything you see and read and hear in the press, you know. What I said was that we need to look into these matters so that if there are instances of abuse, drill down into the systemic challenges in the system to prevent it. That's what I said. So all this stuff about the Minister of Foreign Affairs call for an investigation, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. What I said was drill down into the system to see where the cracks are so that we can fix them and prevent them from happening again in the future. And I hope we're doing that now because we're opening up a lot of missions all over the world.
Thank you, Senator Hanfield.
Madam President, in the tough times of COVID pandemic, the country saw fit to buy a carpet for this diplomat residence at the cost of $15,000. Madam President, Aladdin and Disney, Peebo Bryson and Diana Ross never dreamt of a magic carpet ride for $15,000. Madam President, the 2022 national budget is seriousness. Its financial and economic realities, the part each of us must play for the budgetary projections to be met. I dare say, Madam President, has been overtaken by the generous goodwill and the magnanimous offerings of the government to the Bahamian people to contain inflation, tame the cost of living, and generally allow the country to get back on its feet after the terrible economic decline in the awful COVID pandemic period. For me, Madam President, the most troubling revelation coming out of the debate and communication in the other place was the sober and solemn admission of the persons responsible for the education and training portfolio on how the COVID pandemic lockdowns and emergency orders failed our school children and plunged thousands of kids at a spectacular disadvantage. Madam President, to learn that distance learning and protocols and devices, which the country was told during the COVID pandemic was a colossal failure, is enough to make all of us in here who value the lives and futures of Bahamian children to hang our heads in complete shame. Madam President, as we count down the days of the 50th Independence birthday, these are the issues and matters that Bahamians and Bahamians alone must fix. And while we may be guided by what some colonial or imperial power forced down our throats, we as a sovereign nation at 50 years old should be mature enough and smart enough and courageous enough to mark the manner of our own bearing. Madam President, as I said when I rose, so much has been going on since this 2022 budget communication was tabled in that other place. The nation is minded to pay attention to the national budget. To use an old Bahamian proverb, the other side offered their commentary, and I watched with great appreciation on the level of civility that debate and the mature attention and focus by members strain to take place, despite the churlishness of sometimes cut into the atmosphere. Madam President, as we say in the Bahamas, don't mind the noise in the market, just watch the price of the fish. This 2022 budget communication before us marks the beginning of the government's clear and peculiar, precise positioning on the economic, social, and environmental direction of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas since its election to office in September 2022. The budget communication has given the description, the way forward. All of us in this chamber and across the Bahamas can relate to the rationale behind the terminology of this phrase, the way forward. We are emerging from a dark night of despair, dreariness, helplessness, and indeed hopelessness. It was just yesterday that the obituary section of the local newspaper made up 50% of the publication. The regular but oversized obituary tabloid supplement and an additional 8 pages in the broadsheet sections. COVID was not easy. Lockdowns and emergency orders interfere with our grief, disrupted learning in the classroom, curtailed how we worship, took us away from the office, away from our jobs, and created a new cadre of criminal record holders for offenders of the competent authority. Madam President, I was happy and elated to hear the Attorney General made it very clear that those records would be expunged. I thank you. This is what a new day looks like. All seemed lost, but here we are today. By the grace of God, able to muster with one voice and one chorus the shout, "Joy cometh in the morning." It's a new day. How did we get here? Asked the pop singer. A snap general election was called in September 2021. The incumbent prime minister gave us his rationale for the pandemic, exerted early poll some 9 months before its constitutional due date, that the downturn in the national economy and the financial state of the country occasioned for some tough measures and actions to take place, and therefore the Bahamian people should be given the opportunity to choose the way forward by the way of the ballot. Madam President, I have given those comments of the former Prime Minister some serious and reflective thought. The result of the people's choice at the ballot box may have surprised him and his party, but nonetheless, he put it in the hands of the Bahamian people. Despite the criticism, and there are many, that can be leveled at the former Prime Minister and his administration, I think historians in years to come will review the Prime Minister's decision for a snap election as his finest hour and a major underpinning of the Bahamian democracy, even if his actions were political foolhardiness. Our new Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance had a reason during his June 2022 budget communication to quote the former Prime Minister's remarks as to the reason for the snap general election. For many on both sides of the political divide, the change in government which resulted from the early poll has been a new guiding light, a fresh wind of change, a new reliance and energy in domestic and international confidence. All hands want to be on deck with a consensus for a national reset, which the new Progressive Liberal Party government, led by the Honorable Philip E. Davis, Prime Minister and leader of this party, has so professionally, charismatically, and skillfully and magnanimously managed and delivered. Prime Minister Davis has made us all proud on the local stage and in the international arena. The Prime Minister may walk and talk with kings as he's doing in Chogam, and presidents and queens and prime ministers, yet the Honorable Philip E. Davis, Member of Parliament for Cat Island and St. Salvador and Ragged Island Chain, seems to never lose the common touch and remains a man of the people. Madam President, I thought it would be integral to this debate to remind the country from where we have just come. A higher power must have intervened to lay on the heart and the consciousness of the former Prime Minister, Dr. Minnis, that the task before him was too heavy. The work was just confounding his team in the midst of the pandemic. His health minister, a very competent scientist, resigned in controversy, and coming towards the end of their tenure, the new health minister was found to have presided over the controversial disbursement of funds from an international health agency to reward Bahamian health workers on the front line for exposure to COVID. The historians of tomorrow who will review this period will no doubt say they too are ashamed. Madam President, the Bahamian people surely had enough. There were letters to the editors in some newspapers and callers to popular talk show on radio and television. People were writing the Bahamas off. Cynicism was on an all-time high, and it was the order of the day. The question on everyone's mind was what would or could any new government possibly be able to do if elected? And how could anything be done to turn our circumstances around and our destiny and our future around? All seemed so lost and irrecoverable. Bleak street, I call it. In short, most Bahamians felt we were up the proverbial creek and without a paddle. Madam President, remember the slogan in a US presidential election, which says, "It's the economy, stupid." The Honorable Prime Minister, Philip Davis, gave this report on how a new day in his New Day cabinet team and the technocrats in the cabinet office and the public service rose to the challenge that would have overwhelmed any government assuming office in the conditions and the circumstances it was being handled. Prime Minister Davis said, and I quote, "My first action was to abolish the curfew, the first step in removing unnecessary COVID protocols and restrictions. Immediately, business were able to reopen and employees were able to return to work. VAT and other revenue, therefore, immediately increased, as I said earlier. The Prime Minister continues, and I quote, "Over the ensuing weeks, we set about implementing the plans we had made to address the country's most urgent problems. We introduced free COVID testing, distributed free masks, and increased the numbers of doctors and nurses in the hospital. We ended the emergency orders that sprung back to life. Bahamians returned to work. Young people returned to school. Investor confidence increased. We were keen not merely to jumpstart the economy, but to stimulate economic activity and growth, but to do so in compassionate ways that brought hope and dignity back to the people. We paid nurses, doctors, teachers, and other public sector workers what they were owed up to the current year. And in December 2021, we ensured that every single Bahamian who was receiving $100 weekly payment from the NIB received a $500 lump sum payment. Yes. A caring government. Yes. Be brave. In total, Madam President, over 6.8 million was distributed to Bahamians who had been restricted from able to earn an honest living for so long. The country credibly and standing is much improved. The economy is on the right track, end quote from the Prime Minister. Madam President, what a difference leadership makes. Yes. To govern is to choose. Yes. And choices are sometimes difficult and compelling ones. Yet, the price of leadership is to get on with it. For almost 2 years, the country was stuck in crazy glue, and the former F&M administration, like crybaby little Sally sitting in a saucer, lamented the terrible hand they had been dealt, crying all over the place. Yes, oh Lord, we got Dorian. Oh Lord, we got COVID. Oh Lord, what happened to Oban? Well, the crybabies are gone. Well, the crybabies are gone, and real leaders are now in office. Madam President, we are not out of the cold. We are not out of the cold. The world is waking up every morning to a new and even more compelling challenges. The Davis administration is keenly and acutely cognizant that we live in a dimension where nothing may be constant. On the higher level, we are a small fish in a small pond, and we are punching above our weight, fighting for our life and our very existence in the swirling uncertainties of climate change. Prime Minister Davis is cognizant, and recognizing this is the most significant crusade of his prime ministership, has gone out to the world in his appeal and his diplomacy in bringing the world's attention, focus, and commitment to the agreements and protocols made in Glasgow. Madam President, Prime Minister Davis used his budget debate communication to the nation to focus on the important and the threat of climate change to our way of life. Madam President, climate change is real. I wish to quote liberally from the Prime Minister's prolific and eloquent remarks. He said, and I quote, as a low-lying small island development state, more than 70% of our land mass is highly vulnerable to the impact of a 2.5 degree increase in global temperatures via its resultant increase in sea level. Madam President, that is compelling. We are in a region that is highly prone to climate disaster, such as hurricanes, which have increased in frequency and intensity in recent years. And given the small size of our nation, we are a minor player in the contribution to global CO2 emissions, which result in increase in global temperatures. The Prime Minister, in prioritizing this issue, has also created a specialized team in the Office of the Prime Minister, which he says is dedicated to helping the Bahamas address the impacts of climate change. The Prime Minister's initiative on this international front should be highly commended. And of course, continued, and every Bahamian should be in the vanguard of this country deliberation on climate change. The government is pretty much focused on the alternative energy, which is also so costly. Madam President, our Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Madam President, is on the right track. And before, Madam President, I wrap up, the Prime Minister is cognizant and the government of the rising cost of inflation. And the Prime Minister, in helping Bahamians cope with the cost of living crisis, I just want to point out that the government has implemented a number of mechanisms and issues and to help people to get through this period. The government has reduced import duties on items, increased enforcement of price controls. They have increased the minimum wage for public servants. They have increased social service assistance. They have the support for catastrophic health care, which many of my colleagues alluded to earlier. There's the establishment of the Universal Service Fund, making technology more accessible and affordable. The investment in promoting home ownership, as I mentioned earlier, energy reform to reduce costs, and investment in agriculture to increase food security. Madam President, we are resolute in ensuring that our government and this government's mandate is carried out. Madam President, this brings to end my contribution. Thank you very much. Play it nice, man. Huh?
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Darren Pickstock, for your contribution. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I should start over. Madam President, as I rise to give a brief wrap-up to this debate, I want to thank all senators for their contributions. Madam President, everyone spoke, save yourself. And I believe that the contributions were well-reasoned, they were passionate, and they reflected their concerns not only as senators, but as Bahamians. And I want to assure each senator that the suggestions and comments are taken within the spirit that they were given, I'm sure, rising out of concern about how we manage our affairs, particularly our financial affairs, which really lays the foundation for everything we do as a government, Madam President. I want to thank all senators for their attendance and participation over the last 3 days, Madam President. As we have seen from the contributions, Madam President, as we have said, the practice of budgeting involves a balancing act being able to try and provide for all of the needs that we have as a country and all of the needs that the government should be supplying, prioritizing important matters such as education, health, social services, security, and balancing that with the desire not to raise taxes, not to overburden the population, providing an environment that is conducive to business and creating confidence. And so there's a balancing act. And we have heard throughout the debate, Madam President, the call for more, perhaps more allocation to one particular department or ministry or function, and perhaps the reduction in something else. And the need coming through the whole debate, Madam President, is the issue of providing relief, particularly given the global environment that is affecting us in terms of inflation and elevated prices, and the desire for more relief to be given to the Bahamian public. And we're balancing that relief and that desire to spend and provide that support, Madam President, while keeping another eye on the national debt and ensuring that we conduct our affairs so that we minimize as much as we possibly can the deficit which adds to the national debt. And so it's a balancing act, Madam President. And I would say here that at the conclusion of this exercise, this is part of the job, but the real work begins, because the real work is in the execution. The real work is in putting in place and effecting the enforcement measures, for example, to ensure that we are able to collect the government revenue, to be able to make sure that those investment projects that are in the pipeline and things that are under MOU can come to a conclusion and become operational, and we can feel the impact of it on the economy. So the real work begins when we leave this place, Lord willing, tomorrow, Madam President, at the conclusion of all of the committee stage, etc. I want to touch, Madam President, just briefly on some of the points that, some of the issues that were raised by senators during the debate, and just to shed some light and give some answers when necessary, Madam President. Senator Ellis, who was the first speaker on the opposition side, lamented the centralization of power within the Ministry of Finance with the central purchasing unit. This is not a new concept, Madam President, central purchasing. The idea is that the government purchases across all ministries certain things. Clean copy paper, for example, everybody uses the cleaning products, etc. And the idea is that if we are able to centralize some of this purchasing, we can stretch the dollar further. We can what's the word that I'm looking for? We can synchronize and we can harmonize. For example, we can make we had the practice in the past, for example, where more than one ministry is spending, let's say, $10 for to have the copy machine service, for example, and another ministry is spending 20. So how do we synchronize and harmonize, what we are actually spending on these things? What does happen, and we'll see it as we go through the head, Madam President, is in cases, because there is a concern as well. Concern, for example, raised by the Prime Minister is, listen, if you centralize all of this stuff, what about the people on the family islands with the small business? How are they able to get a little bit of government spending? Or what about the small businesses in New Providence? And that is why you would see that there is some provision left within the ministries for emergency and to be able to patronize, particularly in the family islands, those small businesses. And so we have an eye on that particular, because that was a concern that was raised, is that if you centralize everything, you must guard against just going to the big business, but being able to also patronize the small business. So that will be something that we will be very aware of going forward, Madam President. There was a common Senator Ellis also lamented the increase in the travel budget, and I think that was echoed throughout all of the presentations. And I would only say this, Madam President, that the one point, one point I want to make is, when we say the travel budget, that does not mean only politicians. It's not only politicians, Madam President. It's civil servants who go to training courses, who go to conferences, who go to, we sit around and I was about to say, that stuff comes, you and I, we sit and we around the table, and you have instances where, for example, the police officers are going to do some training in the U.S. The other day, we had the environmental people go into Florida to look at the Everglades because we want to set up a similar sort of enforcement regime here. And so it's not only the politicians that are traveling. We have civil servants who go to the health officials, for example. They go to, the WHO, World Health Organization. The labor people, they go. You have our security forces. Our security forces, they go to training, et cetera, and they go to get knowledge and to bring it back. And so, but the point is taken, Madam President, in that we have to, even within that travel and within, the politicians, because it's a, it goes along with, people when they talk about government wastage, they talk about seeing the red plate at the food store on a Sunday, or the travel budget. And because it's something that people can see, and sometimes they equate it with, okay, travel means party time, or travel means you're going on a jaunt or on a vacation. But again, the point I want to make is, Madam President, that this is not only for politics, this is for the entire government. The bulk of it is civil servants across ministries going on training courses, going to conferences, etc. And but the point is that in these sort of uncertain times, we do need to ensure that we manage every penny. And so when we're talking about size of delegations and maybe even foregoing some of the travel, well, that point is taken. And it is good, the former Minister for Foreign Affairs made the point that notwithstanding the advent of Zoom and WebEx and Teams and all of those, it is good to be in person sometimes. You have to, the government has to be engaged. I was at the Summit of the Americas. I was invited by the president of the IDB to attend some meetings during the Summit of the Americas. And I had the opportunity to, in the hall, speak to senior officials from the IDB and talk about some of their programs and some of their things, some things that we can implement here. For example, this whole idea of learning loss and the need to be able to fill that gap. Those students who might have lost 2 years of learning. And he said, well, we have a program for that. That we can, and so now we're going to be talking about how we can incorporate the program that they have to incorporate it into our planning for a national apprenticeship program to help and ameliorate some of the effect of that learning loss. I was able to sit in a session with John Kerry, who is the U.S. President's Special Envoy for Climate Change, Mayor for Los Angeles, some senior people from the private sector, and tell them that reiterate the concern that when we're talking about concessional funding, meaning funding on at low interest rates or on better terms, that we can't keep looking at this per capita income, and that we must make the multi-vulnerability index, big word, meaning there are a lot of things that can go bad for us, notwithstanding our high per capita income, and let them know that, listen, we've been talking about it for a long time. All of the countries want to move to renewables and reduce their carbon footprint, but you can't do it because you only have so much space in which you can operate. And you can sit in those sessions and bring those points home. So it is important that we don't be seen as, we can't isolate ourselves. We have to get it there. Of course, we can't be, wasteful. We can't be wasteful. But again, it speaks to the balance. I was reminded, and the former Senator Henfield, who was the former Minister for Foreign Affairs, spoke about some of the conferences that he was able to participate in and some of the positive impacts. You know, for example, we remember CHOGM. The Prime Minister and his delegation is at CHOGM as we speak. And you know, it was CHOGM held in Nassau in, I think, 1985, where we had the Nassau Declaration, which led to the freedom of Nelson Mandela. And in fact, where our prime ministers, along with people like Brian Mulroney from Canada, and I think it was Hawke out of Australia, and Margaret Thatcher was here, and our prime minister was on the world stage and played a very pivotal role in Nassau. And in fact, when Mr. Mandela was freed, this was one of the first places he came to show his appreciation. So it's important that we engage. It's important that we engage because a small country, but you know, the term is we punch above our weight. We're a small country. The Jamaicans have a term for it. I won't use it, you know, meaning we're small, but we're strong. And we believe that. And so, but the point is taken because the public is looking at it and they need to know that what we do is necessary and what we do is not wasteful and that what we do brings back benefits to the country that we might not see. We might not go and say, okay, I came back with 25 million, but we might go and say, I planted a seed. Yeah, I know. or we might say, you know, we planted a seed that will germinate and bear fruit somewhere along the line. So we must remain engaged, but the point is taken. We must report to the Bahamian people. Let them know this is the reason why we're doing these things. Senator Ellis suggested I'm going through all the things, so it's not enough. I'm not picking.
In order.
Back to the point of balance. Senator Ellis made the point that, you know, we're not using our increased revenue, I think, to reduce the deficit. The deficit is trending down. But again, when we talk to the point of balance, the government has a very important role as a stimulator in the economy. The government were to withdraw itself, it will have an effect on the economy. People depend on government business, on the government spending money, particularly in the Family Islands. And so we have that, again, we must maintain that balance and put ourselves on the right track. Senator Ellis also spoke about the fiscal strategy report that was due in November. Our view, Madam President, is that when we came into office on September 21st, that we would bring in a supplementary budget to reprioritize some of the existing allocations in the budget. Since 2002, 2007, 12, 17, those four elections were in May, right around budget time. So the incoming administration had the opportunity to put their stamp on the budget right away. This last election was held early, and so it was held in September. And the view of the government is we didn't want to wait until we came all the way around to put our stamp on the budget. And that is why we did a supplementary budget. And our view at the time was that we would delay the fiscal strategy report, not to get away from it, but just that, you know, we were coming up on the supplementary budget and we had the mid-year budget. And we eventually published the fiscal strategy report, which outlines the priorities and a high-level forecast. Yeah, for the and set your trajectory. Yes, because as the senator is saying from his seat, if you have an exigency, you can delay it, which was done in 2020 as a result of COVID. It was delayed, but perhaps we didn't communicate quick enough. But the idea is that it was one of those things. I mean, we did eventually publish it. It provides a high-level trajectory, and any difference between the fiscal strategy report and the budget would just be because of things that happen. For example, since the fiscal strategy report and the presentation of the budget, we've had things like, the inflation has accelerated, we have the war, and so they won't exactly match, but the trajectory is right. We are in the fiscal strategy report, we're saying we want to move our debt to GDP down towards 50% by 2031, and that is, we believe, consistent with what we're doing in the budget. The final point I want to say, Senator Ellis, is that I had heard this before. I had seen it written that the government is benefiting from inflation. Senator Ellis gave an example of, when the government charges taxes on goods, if the price goes up, then the tax goes up. But that, I believe, that works in the when government spends money as well. It costs us. When I say us, all of us. So, when the government buys something, if the price is going up, the government suffers on the other side. It is not the intention of the government to, but we see the point, and I have actually asked the technical people down at the Ministry of Finance to do an analysis and break that out and let me know what that is. What that figure is, and they're working on that for us. I asked them a couple of weeks ago, so I have some of those bright young people down there working on it, so we can actually say, because there's a very famous poem. You say, "Trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too." So I don't believe we are benefiting from inflation, but the point is raised. Let's check it out and see. Let's check it out and see, and then maybe there's something we can do, because we shouldn't be, even though we get it on the cost side, we shouldn't depend on, or we should find a way, in my opinion, that if we are, and we can quantify the extent, we should be able to give that back. That's my view. That's my advice. So we thank Senator Ellis for all of her comments, and like I said, they were taken with the spirit in which they were given. Senator Seymour, in her contribution, focused on social services and was very passionate about her concern about the rise in domestic violence and the need for us to address it and to put more resources towards it. And I think I can speak for all senators when I say we condemn it in the strongest possible terms, and whatever we can do to assist the NGOs and all of those who work in that area, we will do. The $500,000 for the shelter is a start. Of course, it's not enough. In this budget as well, we have increased the allocations for all the NGOs by 10%. It's a rise. And so hopefully that will assist them in what they do. The government could never do it all. We depend on the NGOs and those public spirited persons who work in that area. And we, yes. And we can look at that. Yes, and we can, but the idea is it's a national issue, and it's a vexing issue, particularly when we talk about women and children being abused. I think we all condemn that in the strongest possible terms and commit to do what we can to fight it. Senator Seymour lamented the fact that we are cutting the social services allocation for food assistance, but I would only point out that of course, as we know, in 2020, 2021, there was the National Food Program, which pushed the allocation all the way up. I think it was $58 million. That's 2020, 2021. In 2021, 2022, it was $25 million. This year, food assistance is $21,572,000, which, yes, it's down because the special food program has come to an end, but it is still 50%, 52% actually, higher than it was prior to the pandemic. So in 2019, 2020, before the pandemic, food assistance was $14 million. This budget, it's $21,500,000, which is $7 million roughly increase, 50% more increase, because we recognize that we're not out of the woods yet. And so there's still an elevated level of assistance required that was in place, that was necessary before the pandemic. It's not at the pandemic levels, but the economy is open, more people are working. Not everybody's going back to work. That is why the allocation is up. But we thought it prudent to bring it down from the level that it was at elevated because of the program. If we kept it there, we think it would have been used. Possibly, there would be demand for it. But again, we're talking about balance and the fact that you're coming off a very, very high program, and you're still above, 50% above the pre-pandemic levels. For circumstances and relief emergency desk assistance, that has gone up from 2,550,000 pre-pandemic to 3,292,000, which is a 30% increase. Again, when we speak about these things, and there was a very passionate case put about recent case. Every so often we come across a case. I think the latest one is the lady who was living in the bus in the well field, and we talk about people who seemingly fall through the cracks, and we've had that, and we will have that, and so it's never enough. There's never, everybody is not reached. And when you find those who've fallen through the cracks, the hope is you can reach them and bring them some assistance. But the point I'm making, I say all that to say, there can always be more. But we think that by raising the level to, still above what it was pre-pandemic, we are taking into consideration that not everybody has gone back to normal as yet. The Senator Seymour, I didn't mean to say, Senator Seymour also spoke about the independence celebration and priorities. I don't want to use the culinary term to describe our priorities. The $5.2 million for independence, Madam President. I just want to say this. I remember when we opened Parliament opened, and the reporter said, how much for opening a Parliament? Every day. How much for opening a Parliament? How much for opening a Parliament? And now you want to answer, but you want to make sure that, you give the right answer because, you don't want to give them an answer and then some more bills come in because that happens, Some bills come in early, some come in late. So we gave the number. Then the royal visit. How much the royal visit costs? How much the royal visit costs every day? And we got the figure. And what we learned, well, not what we learned, but what we were able to demonstrate to people, to the public. For example, the royal visit, it was just under $600,000. The bulk of it went to people, the Haman businesses, people who are doing stage, lunch, costume, something to pay the Junkanoo rushes, people who perform. And so it goes into small business, into businesses. So when we're spending the $5.2 million, that's going to go to people who provide stage and lighting, who provide food, who provide costumes. It's going to go to performing artists, people who perform at the celebration. It's going to go to the hotel. It's going to go to restaurants, food vendors who come, bus drivers. And so it goes into the economy. And the second thing I want to say about this, Madam President, is we'll be celebrating 50 years.
Only turned 51.
And I remember either I was in the cabinet or I think I was in the cabinet and having lunch with Sir Arthur Fuchs, Governor General. And he sat down in the, I don't know, I guess we call it the drawing room, the room there, right? And he said, he started to talk and he said, you know why it's important for us to have these things, like, the ceremony, the tradition of cabinet coming to have lunch with the Governor General? It's important to have these traditions that go towards nation building and what we are as a nation. The political director comes and speaks to the governor and have lunch. It's important to have these sorts of ceremonies. And I say that to say, Madam President, that, we'll be celebrating 50 years of independence, a tremendous milestone. Some people, you listen to the talk show or these things they put on Facebook nowadays, what you call them, lives, podcasts and live. Some people think we ain't do nothing. Sorry, my English teachers. Some people think we haven't accomplished anything. In 50 years, you'll have people who tell us we might as well go back to the British. People will say we have accomplished nothing as a country, right? People will say that. So we might as well go back there. You heard it, when things get a little rough, we might as well go back there. We've accomplished nothing. So it's important for us to celebrate, Madam President, our journey and our accomplishment. I remember, and I think it's very important, given the fact, challenges we are facing, and I'm not here just saying this to try and defend, because I've already defended that. That goes to businesses, right? But I remember seeing a young man, I was out campaigning, and the young man, he was about 19. He said, I ain't voting. I said, well, why you not voting? I ain't registering. I said to him, less than 60 years ago, if you don't have property, you couldn't vote. If a woman couldn't vote. If you had different property, different places, you could vote as many times. And I started talking for 10 minutes. And he said, well, I'm going to go register to vote. Because he didn't know. And I say that to say, these sorts of celebrations give us an opportunity to celebrate those who have gone before, who paved the way, who made it possible for independence. And so we get a sense of our history. And when we start to talk about the struggle that some people went through and, ordinary men and women, it serves to instill a sense of pride and purpose, I believe, Madam President. And so we, pride and purpose. And so, of who we are and what is possible. And we have to keep, doing these things and celebrating. And so, I mean, if it...
You got me so convinced you should allocate more.
But I'm saying it's important because we are facing a challenge where, for example, we're coming out of COVID-19 and we have 2 years of learning loss, and we shudder to think what's going to happen down the street, down the road. As these people, these youngsters, they're mature and they can't find employment, and we see the escalation in violent crime and all of the ills. We saw the unfortunate incident with the young man who was 13 years old who was shot, and then, some people who were brought up, they were all around that age. And so we're facing some very, very serious social issues. And I just want to say, Madam President, I agree with Sir Arthur. These are opportunities for us to really celebrate who we are as a nation. And perhaps when all of the books are published and the speeches are given and the programs are put on the television, some young man or some woman somewhere will be inspired to do something. But that's my feeling on that, Madam President. And I'm not I'm not picking. I'm just, in the wrap up we address issues that came up. But I think it's very important, and we need to do some things like that. Madam President. Madam President, in his contribution, Senator Ramings focused on wastage and the need to secure our funds, make sure we get value for money, and make sure he gave some indications of some cost overruns, et cetera. And I think we all can agree with that. We all abhor wastage. And we've seen it, and we scratch our head and we wonder how something, would start off at one price and then it just escalates. And I want to say something, but I ain't. There's something that's amazing to me is like that's just amazing to me, right? It's like, let's say someone. Let me leave that. No, let me say it, right? You would have a project, let's say it costs $10 million. And the consultant says, okay, his fee is 1%. Then the cost escalates to $20 million. His fee is still 1%, but of $20 million. But then isn't it your job to make sure it comes in at 10? Huh? And so I'm not saying something that's new because I see some familiar looks and smiles, right? But I'm just saying, these are some things we have to get on top of. We got to get on top of it because we can do all we can. We can burn the midnight oil down at the Ministry of Finance, and then if we're not getting value for money, it goes away. So that is something we can agree on in terms of, and as a matter of fact, that is one of the pillars. Every time I speak about, and we just I'll speak to the issue of the emerging bonds in a minute. We did an exercise where we did a bond issue and we did what we call a virtual roadshow, which means about 30 or 40 phone calls in about 3 days, right, to investors. And we tell them, our plan, grow the economy, protect the revenue, eliminate wastage, and try to find new sources of revenue. And eliminating wastage is very important because you can do all of that. But if you aren't controlling your expenditure and making sure you get value for money, you're running in place. You're running in place. Mr. Ramming did mention a case with former parliamentarian Mr. Miller. I would say that no funds went to repair any hurricane damage for Mr. Miller. I think what had happened is the government wanted to put in some changes to the building, put in a mezzanine, and the idea was that funds would go towards putting in that mezzanine, and of course, election intervened, and the lease, there were some changes, and it ended up in a court matter. Yeah. The Senator Enfield in his wrap up just spoke about the importance of engagement, and that we don't look at ourselves in isolation, which we agree on, of course, and call for more discipline in management of public finances, which we have no problem with at all. I want to just say a few words about the Procurement Act because it came up in all of the presentations, Madam President. And I just want to say, I think the main issue of complaint, I would say, or contention is there is a section in the Act that calls for the publication of contracts. And I think that when the Leader of the Opposition and the other place raised it, that is the point that he made, and I think that might be the point here as well. And I can say, Madam President, there's a lot of work being done within the Procurement Act, and I'll just read some notes on what is happening, and just to demonstrate this government's commitment to the transparency and the Procurement Act. Madam Speaker, Madam President, as you know, the Act came in, and I think it was September 2nd, I think it came into effect. It's a very extensive piece of legislation, and that required a lot of groundwork to be done. And what we are doing is the very, very rigid. For example, it stipulates that there's a minimum bidding period of 20 calendar days, and even during periods of emergency, procurement activities are subject to 30 days of a bidding period before you can buy goods. I mean, those are some restrictions that we have to look at, Madam President. What we have done is we've engaged a private firm to help us to look at the Act to see how we can revise it. That work is well underway, and what we are doing now is making sure that we also consult with some of the sellers. The Ministry of Finance will introduce in short order a new electronic procurement portal, the mechanism through which all public and quasi-government entities must advertise procurement opportunities to interested suppliers. The new procurement platform was developed in accordance with our procurement needs and specifications by a company called Go Bonfire, a Canadian company which is also doing the work for Barbados and the Cayman Islands. There's a lot of training that's required, Madam President, and we've recently commenced training for 100 public officers, and they are trained and registered in the portal, and that training is ongoing. And we want to train the focal staff in each procurement entity. And once these key staff are trained, they will train others. But there will also be technical officers from the developer of the software, Madam President. There's the expectation that training sessions for external stakeholders, the vendors, suppliers, that will commence in mid-July, and that will encapsulate, amongst other things, responding or submitting documents via the e-procurement portal and within a prescribed time period for procurement opportunities. And so we're likely to really roll out the e-procurement platform in mid-August. And so there is no, I would just like to say, Madam President, there is no, and I think the main, like I said, the main issue is the publication, and that will happen. But there was a lot of work that had to be done in terms of training and in the background, and that is ongoing, Madam President. And we'll see very, very shortly. There will be some amendments and the rollout, and the contracts will be published via the e-procurement portal. And so that work is ongoing. I think the only thing, Madam President, is that it was very, very wide-ranging piece of legislation that came in, right before the administration change, and perhaps it's regrettable that we maybe we need to put some more resources into it. I'll be consulting to see how we can get that done more speedily. But the idea is, how do we balance, of course, transparency and fairness, and everybody gets an opportunity with the government being able to conduct its business. And so I just want to assure senators that they will see some changes very soon, and we will publicize that so members of the public can be reassured. Madam President, Senator Henfield shared an article about an emerging markets article. It says the Bahamas entered that distress club. One of the first things I told people on those calls, Madam President, that in 50 years, that next year we'll celebrate 50 years as an independent country, and in those 50 years, we've not so much as missed an interest payment. If people look at the Bahamas and they see you're vulnerable, and they hear, hurricane, COVID, and tourism based, and and the vultures start circling. But we're far from that, Madam President. We are confident that we are able to fulfill all of our obligations. We recently had a bond issue that was heavily subscribed in a very, very challenging market.
Would it translate that?
Number one, since in the last 9 months, we've had 2 downgrades, one the day after the election, one in December, I think. We've had an inflationary environment. We've had the U.S. Federal Reserve raising interest rates. All of that is bad for bond prices, particularly bad for emerging markets. And so, you'd hear the competition. We were very, very, I don't want to say fortunate, but it was a good thing to be able to successfully, when you say fortunate, it might sound lucky. I think there's a lot of hard work that went into it. Right? There's a lot of hard work from the team at the Ministry of Finance, our advisors, the Financial Secretary, the Governor of the Central Bank, Wendy Craig, and others. We were able to market it and get it done at a good rate, a good transaction. And so what it means, and I think I might have said this in my opening, Madam President, is that we have to proclaim what we believe is the good news about the Bahamian economy and the Bahamian recovery. Because there's some people who think we're going down, and sometimes they put things out. They put things out there. Just saw another article that was shared with me with an opposite opinion, saying that the budget lays a good foundation. Another international article: budget lays a good foundation, and investors are receiving it well. The difficulty with our international bonds, every once in a while, people send me pictures of it trading and say, oh, look at the prices going down. One of the difficulties we have is that normally when we go to market, we go for a couple $100 million. We don't go for billions of dollars. And so the smaller your issue, what they call the less liquid it is, meaning that those big investors, they want to buy big issues, or they want to buy a lot, all right? We do an issue for $400 million, that's a lot of money, but that's a flash in the pan when it comes to international financial markets. So we tend to issue smaller sizes. The second part of it is we're not in what they call the JP Morgan Emerging Bond Index. I think JP Morgan. Yeah, there's a couple of these are what they call emerging market indexes, right? Meaning, and some investors, they will buy stuff that's in the index. Because of our high per capita income, they say we're not an emerging market country, so we can't be. No concessionary rates. But interestingly, I think Saudi Arabia and Qatar are in it, But like when the blacklist came out and had UAE on it, all of a sudden it gets full, So long story short, some of the issues that we have in terms of pricing is because our bonds are illiquid. There's not a lot of them out there. People tend to hold them. If you wanted to go buy some, it's not easy to get. And so, that affects the price. Some people take it to mean that, okay, we're in trouble. We don't think so. What we take it to mean is it's an opportunity to do some interesting financial stuff in terms of, some things that you'll be hearing about very shortly. But we are confident, Madam President. We watch that. We have, in terms of refinancing, we think we have an attractive profile of, a lot of the refinancing we have to do this year is local. And so we're fairly confident. We're very confident that we'll be able to fulfill our obligations. We just have to execute and continue to tell our story. It's amazing. Sometimes people sit from afar, and even though they can press the computer button and read a lot of stuff, it's amazing when people come in and you sit with them in meetings and they see what's going on around the country. They have a different impression, particularly when in these long lines in the airports and the flights are full and all of that. Madam President, there's no doubt that the high levels of inflation affecting our people in every way, food, gas, cost of goods. And what we did in this budget is to take some steps where we could never totally insulate our people, unfortunately, from the impact. But we think we took some very solid steps, particularly in the area of customs duty reductions on food, that will bring some help. Sometime I saw someone send me something today, said on the WhatsApp, they didn't put any commentary, they just sent me the article. Biden asking for federal gas tax to come off, right? Don't say anything else, right? I guess a way to the wise is sufficient, right? I wrote him back. I said, well, I say Biden them could print money. Yeah. President Biden, I said they could print money. And they could open reserve. The states are washing in cash. If you research it, the states are running budget surpluses. So if they say take off their state tax, no skin off their nose. They have rainy day funds. They get money they get from the federal government in the bank, running budget surpluses. Unfortunately, we are not in that boat. And so, unfortunately, the price gets passed on. We bring the relief that we can, but I tell people, and I was accused of talking like I in front of an economics class, right? Man, so every time I get up. But the government gets funds from two sources, taxes and borrowing. And you have to balance it. You don't want to raise taxes, and you don't want to raise borrowing. If you try and cut taxes, try and keep up with what Mr. Biden and those are doing, or what I saw someone send me a thing, said, in Barbados, they dropped the VAT on gas. Yeah, but they put in a special income tax levy and a special corporate tax in the same exercise. Yeah. And so we have to do, I say all that to say, Madam President, what we see other countries do, we have to look at our circumstances and tailor our relief to what we can support. And it's not because of lack of concern or lack of empathy that we don't do more. It's because we're still emerging from this, the effects of this pandemic, and we have to grow our way out. We have to protect our finances. Madam President, I would finally, the question came up about the hedging program at BPL. I'm understanding that it is still in effect until 2024. But what has happened, my understanding is that the hedging, and I don't want to get too technical because I'll get lost, but hedging is based on a certain fuel mix. And we've had some changes in that mix, and so there might be a need now to adjust that. It's based on how much of heavy fuel versus gasoline, I think, and you construct your hedge based on that. I think there's been some changes in that because of some eventualities, some machinery going down, and so now we're consuming more of the one, less of the other, and so it's not as effective. And I think the bottom line is they're looking at it, BPL along with the help of people at Ministry of Finance, are looking at ways which we can increase the coverage and rebalance it, so to speak. Madam President, I will end where I began. This is a balancing act. We're trying to balance our desire to bring relief through spending and concessions and duty cuts, bring relief and grow the economy, always keeping an eye on the fact that we have to build back that headroom by running a lower deficit, hence adding less to the debt, and try to build back that headroom so that when in the event, and it's becoming more and more likely that we get stronger storms, and in the event that we are disrupted again, our economy is disrupted again, we are in a position to be able to respond, to go to the market, to be able to bring relief immediately to our people. And so our job is not done. There's always more that can be done, Madam President, always more that can be done, and that is why our work is really, truly never done. But we believe that what we're doing here in this budget process is a good balance of bringing relief, and stimulating the economy, and to grow the economy, because we believe the way forward, what we're trying to build is a more inclusive model for national development, one that is focused on widespread growth and equality. And so, Madam President, I would once again like to truly thank all senators for their contributions and move for a second reading and committal of a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2022 and ending 30th of June 2022. Second.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expense of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2022 and ending 3rd of June 2023. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2022 and ending 30th of June 2023.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for a second reading and committal of a bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $371,146,142 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th of June 2023.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $371,146,142 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th of June 2023. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act for the appropriation of the sum of $371,146,142 for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for capital development for the financial year ending 30th of June 2023.
For the second reading of bills.
Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2021 and ending 30th of June 2022. This is the supplementary appropriation revenue account expenses bill.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing the 1st of July 2021 and ending the 3rd of June 2022. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2021 and ending the 30th of June 2022.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st July 2021 and ending 30th of June 2022. Madam President, these last two are the supplementary appropriation which is going towards settling some arrears, and this is the mechanism by which we have to do it by bringing this supplementary. So I move. So move.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st of July 2021 and ending 30th of June 2022. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act for the appropriation of further diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas during the fiscal year commencing 1st of July 2021 and ending the 30th of June 2022.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the City of Nassau Revitalization Act.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the City of Nassau Revitalization Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the City of Nassau Revitalization Act.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
For the second reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act.
is there a seconder? Okay. It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Real Property Tax Act.
For the second reading of bills,
Madam President, thank you. I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Spirits and Beer Manufacturer Act.
is there a seconder? It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Spirits and Beer Manufacture Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Spirits and Beer Manufacture Act.
For the second reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Public Finance Management Act 2021.
it has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Public Finance Management Act 2021. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Public Finance Management Act 2021.
For the second reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Economic Empowerment Zones Act 2018.
it has been moved and second that the following bill be committed. It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Economic Empowerment Zones Act 2018. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Economic Empowerment Zone Act 2018.
For the second reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act.
it has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Customs Management Act.
For the second reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act.
it has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Stamp Act.
For the second reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Value-Added Tax Act.
it has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Excise Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed, I'm sorry.
Value-Added Tax.
Oh, sorry. Value-added tax. It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Value-Added Tax Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Value-Added Tax Act.
For the second reading of bills,
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Tariff Act.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Tariff Act. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Tariff Act.
For the second reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Hotels Act.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Hotels Act. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Hotels Act.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Excise Act.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Excise Act. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Excise Act.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act.
For the second reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President. And finally, I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Gaming Act.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and second that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Gaming Act. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Gaming Act.
Madam President, that concludes all of the bills for a second reading. We proposing, Madam President, that we suspend until 10 a.m.
Me and myself.
tomorrow, June 23rd, at which time we will commence the committee stage where we will go into the head-by-head approval of the appropriation bills and as well go through all of the other budget bills. We want to come back tomorrow when everybody is fresh and alert so that we can, we can move through, and we anticipate that we should be able to get done, hopefully. We will get done tomorrow. So, Madam President, I move that the business of the Senate do suspend until Thursday, the 23rd of June, 2022 at 10 a.m.
It has been moved and second that the business of the Senate be suspended until tomorrow, June 23rd, 2022 at 10 a.m. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. All of the business of the House is suspended until June 23rd, 2022 at 10 a.m.
All rise.